This last week, I was at a biblical conference with some Catholic biblical scholars, Dr. Scott Hahn, Dr. Brant Petrie, and Dr. John Bergsema, and it was wonderful to see them. And just looking at Dr. Scott Hahn, who was actually a Protestant minister for many years and had a thriving ministry as a Protestant minister, no reason to leave his faith as a Protestant, except he encountered a Monsignor Bruskowitz, who is now a bishop of Lincoln. But he encountered him and they had conversations about the faith, about Catholicism, about history, about the fathers of the church like St. Augustine and St. John Chrysostom. And he started to read those, and he also started to read the Catechism and look into Catholicism, especially the teaching on the Eucharist. And he entered the faith about 2.5 decades ago. And he's been a huge gift for us as Catholics because he's written a ton of different books showing Catholicism and its roots within Scripture, paralleling, and he just did a series recently called The Bible and the Sacraments. He did one before that called The Bible and the Virgin Mary, and just talks about these teachings. These things are very, very, very real. And for a Protestant to tell these things, it's so fresh and new for them. But for us, it takes a little bit more to kind of look at it and also say, yeah, this is really there. In the Old Testament, it's image there, and there's typologies there leading up to these sacraments, to these teachings on the Blessed Virgin Mary. And there's great things happening not only there. The biblical conference was wonderful, 200 priests from around the United States, a few from Canada, one from Holland. We had some interesting fellas there. It was really great. But then there's other things going on too. The last 2 weddings I have done have been between 2 Catholics that have come from strong Catholic families, not like Shiite Catholic or whatever families, they're just naturally good-natured families and really love their faith. And all their siblings are still practicing the faith. And when I see the couples, their siblings all still practice their faith and still love it. Because a number of them went, to ask for the sacraments from me. Also, I know because I distribute communion at these wedding masses too. So I know they are practicing and they love their faith. And it was beautiful to see that. So there's these bright lights. And these last 2 couples, they weren't living together before marriage too, showing that they really care about doing the things right. And they were so radiant. They were twice as radiant as the other brides and grooms that I've ever seen. Nobility, the virtue that's there. They protected their hearts and minds. And they are blessed for it. It's when we step out of that, when we step out of the plan of God for our lives, the blessings stop. Because we've killed certain things in our own interior life. We've shut off the life of grace that's supposed to flow through our vocation. Now, when we do this, it's wonderful to see when we make little sacrifices, when we try to cultivate and become good soil to receive the word, to be really open to the Lord, not closed off, not too sluggish about it. Lord, I'm already challenged enough. This just seems to be another challenge in my life. Is your word to me? Well, no, not exactly. It's not like everything else in your life. This is the one that's really that important, that actually gives life into your soul, that you can deal with all the other challenges with greater ease and tranquility of heart that make it not so bad. It's hard, but it's not that hard. Life is hard, but it's not that hard. And where's that willing spirit to say, Lord, I am your servant. Teach me your ways. Show me what to do next, and I will do it. I am that good soil. I'm ready to be the good soil. Of course, we look at these other types, of course, and Jesus, as he points this out to the crowd, the parable of the sower, is kind of an autobiographical passage. It reflects very much the experience of Jesus in his own preaching. He's preaching the word, and who is receiving it? Some are, and some are not. Some don't give a what, and some actually maybe say, yeah, that's interesting, but then they get distracted right away when they leave, and we do that too, We leave the church doors and we get a call, and then we're just, all the spiritual fruitfulness of what we just experienced in Mass, sometimes it just floats right away because we haven't really let it sink in deep, to have a deeper plow for our hearts, to really receive the word and say, that's something I'm going to hang on to. And Jesus, of course, too, wants people to be good soil, to yield that fruitfulness of the harvest. The method that he preached really was that parable so that those who follow him will understand them, but those who do not follow Jesus will not understand the parable. because they'll see him, not understand. Think of somebody who's non-Catholic who wanders in. Maybe they'll be fascinated by the Mass, but they won't really know what's fully going on. And some of us are in the same boat, and that's okay. We just need to keep learning about our faith. Never stop. Keep moving. There's no plateaus in the spiritual life. You're either going closer to the Lord or further away. That is the way it is. And that's the way it is in a marital relationship too. There's no plateaus there either. There really isn't. And we want to go to the Lord for new strength to learn from his marital covenant between him and his church, that he gives the substance of himself as the bridegroom to the bride every day, approximately 300,000 times a day around the world. He does this. He lives out marriage well so that we might feed on that covenant to be more indissoluble in our own bonds in marriage. He encourages them in their decision to follow him. Whoever has some, more will be given him. If you are following me, you will be given more. You'll be okay. That conversion of heart is a gradual thing. It's an everyday thing. And coming back to the Lord again and again. Jesus himself, in fact, is the parable par excellence, as Pope Benedict XVI has pointed out. His person is really a sign of humanity, hides also at the same time, and reveals his divinity. Today we'll also learn from the Blessed Virgin Mary. This is the feast day of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, too. If it weren't a Sunday, we would be celebrating Our Lady of Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel is basically a high ridge that runs down the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. And it's on the altitude of Galilee, and it's dotted with numerous natural caves where hermits used to make their home. And one of those most famous men of God was the great prophet Elijah. And Elijah, 9 centuries before Christ, strenuously defended the purity of the faith of Israel against all of the contamination of idolatrous cults, and really defended the one true God. And inspired by this figure of Elijah, the Carmelite order arose. And among the Carmelite saints in that religious family are St. Teresa of Avila, St. Therese of Lisieux, and St. John of the Cross, and St. Teresa Benedicta of the Cross. The Carmelites then have spread across they've spread Christian devotion to our Blessed Mother and Our Lady of Mount Carmel, especially the scapular. And Mary was truly the first to really never be equal to believe and to experience that Jesus, the incarnate Word, is the summit and peak of man's encounter with God. She did this. She fully accepted the Word. And we can learn from her example. And she was truly blessed and brought to the holy mountain, the one true Mount Carmel, but the heavenly Mount Carmel, and lives forever with the Lord, body and soul. We do believe as Catholics that there is a woman's body and soul in heaven right now. Our Blessed Mother, let's learn from her how to be good soil, to receive the Word, to integrate it, to assimilate the graces that are there, to ask things of Jesus in those intimate moments after communion. Then we will be good soil for Jesus to make his home within us. Then we'll yield 160 and 30-fold.